Your customers are dealing with this. If you want to talk about lots of profit, but one of the keys to making profit in the next 20 years is you take a manual process and you add some artificial intelligence to it. I mean, I got some books I'm going to recommend at the end talking about how to do that. But fundamentally, with a guy in a boat going to Nassau in the Bahamas, get a call on the satellite phone. It's Caterpillar. Your number 4 injector in the port engine is clogged. You're going to have a problem. Here's the GPS coordinates for the Cadillac dealer in Nassau, because we can tell you're going there, and we verified if they have the replacement parts and an appointment's been made for you. You're just driving your boat and the engine just sounds a little funny. What's happening is the sensors help you understand what's happening. At a simple example, my bearings are shot in my forklift. It's sending an email to somebody who need to do something before it breaks down. This is a Raspberry Pi. It costs $30. I'm in the board of a university. Every business student that comes in is required, we give them a Raspberry Pi, they have to build an application with technology and program it with sensors and everything else, and actually develop a business application using this technology. I like cigars. Took a Raspberry Pi, put a hygrometer on it, so if the humidity in my humidor gets too low, I get a text message. I'm an old guy. Even I could figure that out. But the thing that's interesting here, how many people know what a dash is? How many people have a dash? Wow, it's you and me, bro. Here's the deal. They charge you $5, but the first time you use it, you get a $5 credit, so they're basically free. I have these things stuck all over my house. I got one that's got Tide HE detergent. It's about that big. It's got a little piece of sticky tape in the back. I stuck it on the washing machine. Anytime the soap starts to get low, all I do is I hit the button, and Amazon delivers a Tide HE. Ugh. And they have these for all kinds of things. And what happens in terms of reorder, if you have these things stuck up in a storeroom or in a job site trailer that's sitting there, and all of a sudden the thing gets low, instead of having somebody have to check it, somebody just starts punching buttons. All that's there. Restaurant equipment. We own a restaurant. We want somebody to install equipment. Amazon is spending tons of money. One of their big pushes right now is getting into the professional services business. We plug in our zip code, and we get to pick from restaurant equipment installers. I decided it's time to, hanging out with you guys, I decided, all right, I need to get rid of all these weird lamps in my house and get everything LED, and I want all the home automation so I can control everything on my iPhone. So I go to Amazon, I order 3 Insteon switches, and you can buy those anywhere. I mean, it's not a big deal, but there was a little box to check, $80. And it said, for $80, we'll have a home automation specialist come and install these 3 switches for you. Click. So the Amazon switches show up. The guy calls, makes an appointment, come out, and I said, you know what? I don't really care about the Insteon switches. I wanted to find you. Here's my spec. I need a bid. I want you to do this whole, and I walked him through and did the whole thing. I said, do I have to buy all this stuff from Amazon? And he says, no. I love Amazon. Amazon is going to charge you $80 if you're happy with me, right? I'll install the switches. I get 70% of that. And they tell me they don't want any involvement in terms of what I'm doing with my clients after that. So thank you very much. This is my entire marketing thing. Amazon's getting me all my new customers. Whoa. So you got Internet of Things. You have everybody everything sort of unbundling, and you look at where it's going. Remember I talked about phase 1. We got to get growth if we're a manufacturer. So what I have to do is I have to figure out, how do I get into this arena and how do I play? And there's a lot of people committing a lot of money and a lot of resources because they got to get there. Anybody here old enough to remember the Sony Betamax VHS tape format war? How well did that work? When you start thinking about proprietary standards versus open standards, there's going to be a real interesting conversation. And in the equipment industry, this is called telematics in the business. If you get a bulldozer, a forklift, you get any of this equipment now, they have telematics on it. They know where it is, they know what's going on, so people don't lose the equipment anymore. And Caterpillar is one of the leaders in this. And what they do is they have all this equipment, they own all the data. What is the value of the distributor to the channel if the manufacturer owns all the data on customer usage? This is a channel issue. There's an issue going on in construction equipment right now where distributors are starting to say, we want to have an open standard. We're going to manage that customer relationship, not the manufacturer. And there's a lot of conflict going on. They haven't worked that out yet. It hasn't hit this industry yet, but does everybody understand it's going to? Someday? 100 years from now, maybe sooner. So, the new Facing the Force of Change study is coming out next week. In that Facing the Force of Change, they're talking about 7 disruptive changes that are changing the way business operates. Dirk Beveridge and his WD Unleashed just put out his newsletter this morning quoting Kathy Mazzarella. You guys know who Kathy is? Runs Gray Bar. And he's very good at getting provocative quotes. Dirk's just like an ace at that. But Kathy is quoted as saying, distribution as we know it doesn't exist anymore. Things are different. I am highly confident that this industry is going to be around for a long time. If I was a young man and wanted to be in this industry, the last thing I would do would be to go out and get a big building, put it full of product, and then hire a bunch of sales guys. It's a great industry. It's just going to look different. One of the things that's happening when you talk about manufacturer consolidation, and you haven't actually seen a lot of this yet, people acquire to get growth. Some of this is empty growth. People acquire to get capabilities. This capability is really important. The first large-scale example of this, anybody here like Scotch? Back when Johnny Walker ran Johnny Walker, does everybody understand how far back you got to go? He went out and he bought the Skye Distillery in Scotland. And the Skye Distillery had an extremely light Scotch. And people back in the, I guess just back in the 1700s, early 1800s, people were just discovering blends instead of single malt. Everything that's old is new again, right? We're all back into single malts now. But the Skye Scotch made for an absolutely outstanding blend. And what happened when Johnny Walker bought that, he took that away from every other mix, every other blend. You're going to start to see manufacturers doing things for extra capability. So in terms of the manufacturer thing, they have to show growth, they have to get big. There's an equivalent. Anybody here familiar with Sonepar and Rexel? Yeah, well, they're around, They have different ownership structures. They're not run by owner-operators. The owner of the capital is not the senior executive of the business. There's employee owners. They have the same problem. If they don't generate growth for their shareholders, it's career limiting. This is very important. What's happened in every other industry that's a little further ahead than this one, markets align by size. In other words, large companies buy from large distributors, medium companies from medium distributors, small companies from small distributors. It's a mutually assured destruction. I need to be big enough to you that I know what matters to me matters to you a lot. And so what's happened is that distributors are going through a similar consolidation phase, and a lot of this, it's circular. You can't tell where did it start. Did it start with the manufacturers getting bigger to deal with the big distributors? Understand, size is about market power, and market power is never given, it's taken. It's forcefully taken from a channel partner. And so what happens, are you going to put your retirement money in some place that's got no growth? You want to see growth. So the distributors go through the same thing. And let me give you a couple terms. I just want to be specific, and I'm going to show you how the money works. Strategic buyer, that's somebody that's in the industry. What's happened to this industry over the last 4 or 5 years, and this has gotten very little coverage, it happens by it's episodic, but nobody's really talked about the pattern, but see if this makes sense. Everybody talks about Sonepar and Rexel. What's happened in this industry, I'm talking to a $20 million revenue distributor right now that's buying a $5 million distributor. If you're in the industry, what's happened is that the independents have started to figure this out, and you have a lot of independents starting to do little bolt-ons and do all these other things. And so there's a ton of strategic, I'll show you the stats here in a second. There's a ton of strategic buyers. There's also a bunch of private equity buyers. Now let me explain, and the private equity buyers, these are the smartest people in the world. They all went to Harvard, they all have beautiful spouses, and they're all brilliant. But they're basically employees. Here's how the money works. A private equity firm goes to rich people, maybe not like us. You put in $1 million or $2 million to buy a share in a fund. They can call 10% a month. So if you put $1 million in the fund, they can call from you, and you give them a check up to $100,000 a month. They take this money in this fund and they go buy companies to create value. The requirement that they have is that I want you to think about the return you're getting at Wells Fargo or Citibank. They get a 20% return on their invested capital. If they don't, the private equity guys are out of business. This is the minimum threshold, just so you know. Everybody talks about income inequality. I'm not saying anything. Anyway, so here's what happens. A private equity firm charges 4% for managing the money. I need to go buy a company so I can start charging you the 4%. Now that comes out of my share at the end, but I need these 4% fees from all these things to go. And here's the problem. Listen closely, there's over $1.5 trillion of uninvested private equity committed funds available to buy companies. $1.5 trillion. And these people can't collect any money if they don't buy anything. So there's a disease we're going to talk about called crazy to win, right? They've got to spend the money to go. Now, when these guys go out and buy a platform company, they look at this as strong enough to do add-on acquisitions. The companies they buy are all owner-operators. I'm going to put you guys, if you're a distributor, in one of two categories. You're either a lifestyle manager. It's good to be king. Kiss my ring. Don't get my finger wet. And you're frugal. It's more important to avoid a bad year than to take any risk to have a good year. I squeeze money. I'm very conservative. You ask me for change for $1, I'll poop it out a nickel at a time. I'm just not going to spend money until it's absolutely life-threatening. My staff is screaming and yelling. I've got an old crappy ERP system. The warehouses, everything's just goofy. I just don't spend money. The key thing, a lot of this is the millionaire next door. That's not a platform company, that's an add-on. There are a number of owner-operators that are professional managers, and they will invest ahead of the business. They'll say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to grow if I don't deal with this ERP system. Let me go spend the money now. Those companies become platform companies, and when they do add-on acquisition, they buy these. Because to be a platform company and have a PE company go after you, you need to be able to have extra capacity to grow. They need to buy you, they'll pay you a premium, but they need to be able to know I can add other people, I can put them on the ERP system, you have good management talent, all those things matter a lot. That's the main difference. Now, here's the key thing. When private equity companies get this return, they're going to do I'm going to show you how the math works. They're going to sell these companies, but here's what they basically do. This is called ethical harvesting.